here. So my name is Christina Kamposiori, and I'm the Executive Programme Officer at Research Libraries UK, a consortium of 39 research libraries across the UK and Republic of Ireland. So today I would like to present some key findings of a recent RLUK project, showcasing how RLUK institutions work towards developing more inclusive practices in workforce recruitment and retention. Going to move my presentation. All right. So in this slide, I have included some more information about the governance of RLUK as an organization, but also the strategy on which I would like to focus on for a little bit. So our current strategy, which runs until the end of 2025, highlights the transformative potential of libraries and includes 5 core strands, as well as 3 cross-cutting themes, which run across all areas of the strategy. And I have included a link to the strategy if you would like to have a look. EDI is one of these cross-cutting themes, which act both as a provocation for us, but also as an opportunity to think differently about our work and our partnerships. At the time of the development of this strategy, issues around EDI were really at the forefront of discussions following the rise of movements such as the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as student activism, which has had a strong influence on decision-making and has motivated professionals in many cultural heritage institutions to work towards cultural change and towards social justice. So within the RLUK membership, this shift presented an opportunity to become more open and transparent about the history of institutions and look at ways to uncover hidden voices in collection, make practices more inclusive, and work towards developing a more diverse workforce. However, embedding EDI principle in practices and processes across the different areas of the institutions in ways that are both transformative and efficient has certainly had and still has its challenges. So in this presentation, I will aim to discuss a piece of focused research that we conducted through using the RLUK job descriptions in the Research Libraries Position Description Bank as the basis for exploring how issues around EDI are represented in job descriptions submitted by RLUK institutions. So, but first, to say a few things about RLUK's involvement in the Research Libraries Position Description Bank, or RLPD Bank, as I will refer to very often. And the RLPD Bank is a collection of position description, or PDs, from major academic and research libraries in the US, Canada, and the UK. It fosters the sharing of information through a browsable and searchable database that provides access to a national collection or bank of position descriptions. In this slide, you can also find a QR code that will direct you to the main site of the RLPD Bank. So RLUK joined the RLPD Bank in 2021, and since then, 21 RLUK members have contributed 675 position descriptions, and I think this number has raised a little bit since the time I last checked. We believe that the PD Bank can be used by RLUK members as a resource to investigate a variety of issues around workforce development, but also the evolving role of the information professional. And also I would like to mention that we are also collaborating in some cases with students and provide access to students for research as well. So this research aimed to be an example of what can be done through this using this resource after the first year that we joined the PD Bank, and especially as members continue to upload job descriptions regularly. And moving now to the focused research that we conducted using the RLPD Bank, the goal was to investigate how issues around equality, diversity, and inclusion are represented in the job descriptions of RLUK member institutions, explore how libraries apply EDI values to their recruitment practices, identify new roles, including leadership positions that are being created to drive EDI initiatives and contribute towards cultural change within institutions, and to explore the international context through a comparison to initiatives being undertaken by US and Canadian research libraries at the time. And I say at the time because now lots of things have changed, especially the political circumstances. But I'll come to that later. It is also worth noting that this piece of research aimed to contribute to discussions around workforce development in RLUK member institutions and the lack of diversity that is often encountered in the research library workplace. So for the purposes of this study, an analysis of 319 job descriptions submitted by RLUK members to the RLPD Bank until August 2022 was conducted. This covered approximately the first year of RLUK contributions in the PD Bank. The roles that had been submitted by RLUK members at that point came from across the different areas of the library. This included leadership and senior roles, as well as middle management and more junior roles. Regarding the employed approach, the focus was both on direct and indirect references to EDI. So examples of direct references to EDI that we were looking for were, for example, roles which included language directly linked to EDI, including, for example, terms such as anti-racism, equality, diversity and inclusion, LGBTQ+, disabled or disability, and decolonization in their title, often indicating that they had been created as part of or to drive EDI initiatives, and relevant EDI language in the main body of the job description, either as part of a positive statement, the role, duties and description, or a person specification. And examples of indirect references to EDI included language and expressions as part of the role title, description, duties, and person specification that did not directly refer to EDI, but could be considered supportive of EDI. For instance, the statement to support a wide range of users and work with people from different professional backgrounds was considered supportive of EDI. And also just to mention that I have included a QR code if you would like to access the report with the full results and the full information on the methodology as well. So the job descriptions research was complemented by semi-structured interviews with one or two representatives from 6 RLUK institutions, and each interview lasted up to an hour and helped build a broader picture of the EDI initiatives that were being led by members at the time. In this slide, you can see the variety of issues we discussed, ranging from institutional policies or strategies around EDI, what or who drives change in the institution, roles that have been particularly created to drive EDI initiatives, representation of EDI issues in the RLPD Bank job descriptions of the institutions that had submitted position descriptions there by that time, including direct and indirect references to EDI, questions and discussion around recruitment practices and how they support EDI, the collection and use of statistics in support of EDI, and at that point we explored also the interest of members in the development of a program for emerging leaders. So the results of the analysis from both the PD Bank job descriptions research and the interviews were then placed within an international context. This was achieved through examining relevant job descriptions submitted by research libraries in the US and Canada to the RLPD Bank. And given the large number of position descriptions in the database at that time, which were nearing 5,000, from ARL, ASRL, CARL, and RLUK, including us, a more targeted approach through keyword searching was conducted to bring up any relevant roles. So the term used to conduct the keyword searches were chosen based on the terminology used to refer to EDI issues and initiatives in the RLUK job descriptions in the RLPD Bank. And however, these were also informed by the interview discussions and the type of terminology generally associated with EDI initiatives in the UK and beyond. So the majority of RLUK job descriptions submitted to the PD Bank included some type of EDI or positive statement. These were mostly found at the bottom of the job description templates and refer to the strategic plans and values of the library's home institution around EDI. It is worth noting that the presentation of this information varied, and it could range from a few sentences to a table listing the values of the institution. Based on the job description analysis, RLUK members had sometimes relevant policies which implied that EDI was part of a library's goals, values, and working practices. And these were mostly found within the body of the job description rather than at the beginning or end of the template. However, in some instances, there were statements which did not refer directly to EDI or included relevant language, but would be considered supportive of EDI and revealed inclusive recruitment practices. For example, statements mentioning the fact that the home institution, including the library, offered policies that were family-friendly or supported flexible working. Regarding the format of job description templates, this varied widely not only across RLUK members, but also within specific institutions. RLUK members can generally upload both older and recent job descriptions in the PD bank, which means that the templates and the way information is presented can vary. And this directly relates to the presence of EDI statements, as it is less likely to encounter EDI references in older versions of the templates. Research across the RLUK submissions to the RLPD bank revealed only one template at the time, which seemed to have been created to communicate very explicitly the commitment of the home institution to EDI. So the RLPD bank analysis of the RLUK job description showed at that time in 2022 that there were 7 roles with direct references to EDI, which means that they had specific terminology in the title of the job description, often an indication that the role had been created primarily to lead and support EDI initiatives. The positions varied in terms of their seniority. They ranged from relatively junior to managerial and leadership positions. And the duties associated with these roles included working with and supporting communities from specific ethnic backgrounds or with other protected characteristics, or aiming to make collections more inclusive through decolonization. However, there were some job descriptions amongst those submitted by the RLUK community, which included terminology in their titles that did not directly refer to EDI, but could be considered supportive of EDI, such as, for example, terms such as access or participation. The duties listed as part of these roles and the attributes sought in potential employees were often directly related to EDI. The interviews with the RLUK member representatives showed that research libraries often find it difficult to justify the creation of roles, especially senior ones, that focus solely on EDI initiatives, as the home institutions already have very often EDI offices or other teams and groups that oversee EDI initiatives across the institution. Based on the interview discussions, it became apparent that libraries can more easily create more junior roles, often with a focus on collections or community support rather than leadership roles, especially with a focus on the workforce. So even though there were few RLUK job descriptions with direct references to EDI in their title, the majority of RLUK members had submitted position descriptions that included direct or indirect references to EDI in the role responsibilities and person specification sections. Apart from EDI-related duties and responsibilities that could be considered role-specific, some institutions prefer to include more general EDI-related responsibilities across many, if not most, of the job descriptions they had submitted to the RLPD bank. For example, this could relate to the responsibility of an employee to follow and respect institutional strategies and policies around EDI. Regarding the presentation of this information, especially around the more general EDI duties and personal attributes, institutions employed different approaches. Most listed this together with other duties or personal attributes. In the case of one institution, the employed approach was to include 3 statements around EDI at the top, middle, and end of the key responsibilities section. It was also very common to include some type of EDI duties in the portfolio of responsibilities of senior roles, such as associate director roles or other managerial positions with specific EDI duties. As it became evident through the interviews, it was easier for libraries to add relevant responsibilities when recruiting for an existing role, for example, after it had been recently vacated, than create a new one, especially a leadership role, due to the administration and funding challenges associated with this. So finally, information related to the qualification requirements included in the person specification section of the job descriptions revealed aspects of member institutions' recruitment practices and the extent to which EDI had been taken into consideration. And the majority of RLUK roles submitted in the RLPD bank did not list advanced degrees or degrees on specific disciplines or other qualifications as essential requirements for applying, unless these qualifications were considered necessary for the role. So through the interviews, it became possible to collect further information, not only about the position descriptions that were at the time in the RLPD bank, but also about existing EDI structures within home institutions and the libraries, and inclusive recruitment and retention practices, and any relevant metrics collected by institutions to support EDI. So based on their findings, RLUK member libraries often have internal policies or codes of ethics to guide professional practices and encourage inclusive behavior, but they tend to align the general approach to EDI with the home institution's strategic goals and ambitions in the area. RLUK member libraries are taking steps to make their recruitment and retention practices more inclusive. As part of these steps, institutions are changing the approach through which job descriptions are developed, for example, through gathering useful feedback on a job description from different staff members to ensure that the role description and person specification are as inclusive as possible. And they are also looking to publish this outside mainstream channels, such as specific professional networks. Library staff involved in recruitment undertake relevant training with regards to job description development as well as interviewing. Interview panels are aimed to be gender balanced and bring together a variety of views, for example, including professionals from professional services side and the academic side. And job applications tend to be anonymized to remove unconscious bias, while before an interview, the needs of potential candidates are increasingly taken into account, for example, in the cases of professionals with neurodivergent profiles. Grassroots groups and other EDI committees and networks increasingly play an important role in workforce development and retention. And institutions also, several of them aim to organize open days to support inclusive recruitment and retention. And there are a variety of projects that are taking place within libraries to enhance understanding of the library's workforce and broader community. For example, understanding library space use by neurodivergent staff and students, or the experience of students and other groups with protected characteristics. So moving now to the next part of the presentation, focusing on the international landscape analysis. An examination of the job descriptions submitted by research libraries in the US and Canada to the RLPD Bank revealed a variety of roles from all areas of the library and from different levels of seniority with direct references to EDI. So at the time, there were 984 entries by US and Canadian libraries, which had all three terms, equity, diversity, and inclusion, anywhere in the job description. It is worth noting that no RLUK job description that had been submitted up to that point to the RLPD Bank included all these three terms. A keyword search with the terms diversity and inclusion anywhere in the job description brought up an even greater number of entries, including several RLUK entries. Searches with single terms revealed that the word diversity was the most popular and widely adopted by all consortia. The terms inclusion, equity, disability, and race also brought up a significant number of entries, especially by ARL institutions, which means that there were either roles with relevant duties and responsibilities or job descriptions which included other elements, for example, statements with these terms. Regarding the term equity, at the time it became evident that this was a term that was preferred by US and Canadian institutions compared to RLUK institutions, where equality was used more often. And the results of the keyword searches showed that there were several position descriptions, especially by ARL institutions, which had direct references to EDI in their title. More specifically, there were 12 entries which included all three terms, equity, diversity, and inclusion, in the title of the job description. The majority of these were senior roles, including at director, associate university librarian, and assistant dean level. As said previously, there were 7 position descriptions with direct references to EDI in their titles submitted by RLUK members, while CARL, the Canadian Consortium of Research Libraries, had no entries with any of the listed terms in the titles of job descriptions. And yeah, you can find more information about the specific number of entries per consortium through the report, but I will also provide some insights towards the end of this presentation. Actually now. So as part of this presentation, I really wanted to go back and do some keyword searches again to see how things have shifted, or whether things have not shifted since the last time that we did the research. And so in the next few slides, I will be providing some new information around this area. So as I said earlier, at this point, 21 RLUK members have contributed 675 position descriptions. And first, I wanted to go to the RLUK job descriptions and try some searches with the terms neurodiverse, neurodivergent, and neurodiversity, which were not used in keyword searching during the first phase of research, as having gone through the RLUK job description at that stage. This was not a terminology that was encountered in 2022. However, yeah, for the purposes of this presentation, yeah, I wanted to check again and see what will come up. So the results are that no position descriptions with the terms neurodiverse or neurodivergent anywhere in the job description came up. There was one position description with the term neurodiversity in the body of the job description. It referred to the duties of the professional who will be holding the role, which will include supporting students and users with neurodiverse profiles and or disabilities. And I also went back to the RL position description, since ARL is one of the major contributors to the RLPD Bank, and many of its members were prioritizing EDI until recently to see if there were any job descriptions with these terms there. And after the search, so the search showed no position descriptions with the terms neurodiverse, neurodivergent, or neurodiversity anywhere in the job descriptions by ARL. So regarding the other terms that were used as part of the first round of research that we conducted, I will provide you with some updated information at this point. So regarding the term inclusion anywhere in the job description, at this stage, there are 349 position descriptions in the PD Bank compared to 146 in 2022. Regarding the term equity anywhere in the job description, at this point there are 71 compared to 0 in 2022, which means that this is a term that has started to be increasingly used in the UK and not only in the US and Canada as it was in 2021. And the term equality anywhere in the job description brought up 377 position descriptions compared to 165 in 2022. And continuing with the RLUK data, the term diversity anywhere in the job description brought up 391 position descriptions compared with 155 in 2022. The term disability anywhere in the job description brought up 61 position descriptions compared to 11 in 2022. And having a further look at the sample of these job descriptions from different RLUK institutions, so that this term is used as part of statements which highlight that professionals from various backgrounds are invited to apply. And in some position descriptions, this term was used in the list of duties and responsibilities of the professionals who will be holding the role, for example, to support users with disabilities. Regarding the term LGBTQ+, anywhere in the job description, we have now 17 position descriptions compared to 1 in 2022. Again, a sample of the job descriptions from different institutions showed that the term was often used in statements that highlighted inclusive practices, as well as when referring to staff networks that exist in an institution and which can make the job role more attractive to candidates with certain characteristics. And it was interesting to see there were different types of also staff networks listed in the job descriptions as well, such as networks for staff from ethnic minority groups or professionals with disabilities. And also research across RLUK's job descriptions titles using the terms that I showed above brought up the same results as in 2022, meaning just 7 job positions still with direct references to EDI in their title, which to some extent confirms the data that we collected through interviews in 2022, highlighting the challenges that institutions face in creating more roles with a focus on EDI due to budget constraints or for other reasons. And going to also to the RLUK, to the ARL, sorry, to consortium to also test some of these terms. So by testing the terms equity, diversity, and inclusion anywhere in the job description, so we got 1,685 position descriptions, up from 780 in 2022. The terms equity, diversity, and inclusion in the title of the job description, often describing senior roles with EDI responsibilities, or DAY, as it was preferred in the US, brought up 24 position descriptions compared to 12 in 2022. And the terms diversity and inclusion in the title of the job description brought up 31 position descriptions compared to 18 in 2022. So generally, this sort of research experiment that I did last week showed that that really the job descriptions with EDI references have doubled as members continue to add position descriptions in the PD bank. However, it will be really interesting to see maybe in a year or so, especially from colleagues in the US and Canada, to see if this growth is continuing or will be just halted due to other challenges they currently face. So just a conclusion to summarize. So overall, this research showed that even though RLUK members gradually incorporate EDI elements directly or indirectly in their job descriptions, there are not many roles focusing solely on EDI, especially senior roles, based on the job descriptions in the RLPD bank. On the other hand, at the time of the first phase of this research, there was an increasing number of positions in the US that we saw that were being created to drive EDI and culture change more broadly within research libraries. And of course, as mentioned earlier, it would be really interesting to check again in the immediate future to see whether we can capture any shifts in the data there. And something that all consortia had in common was that they included EDI and other positive statements in the job descriptions, which can be found in the RLPD bank. Based on our interviews, current structures within RLUK members' home institutions and other challenges, for example, lack of funding, prevent many libraries from creating more roles which focus solely on EDI. However, as mentioned, the approach employed currently by RLUK members involves adding EDI responsibilities to existing roles, such as after they are vacated, especially senior ones, and launching initiatives and groups which aim to promote EDI and contribute towards an inclusive working environment, which can attract employees from diverse backgrounds. And as our UK members progress their EDI plans and more institutions contribute to the RLPD bank, it will be interesting to see whether these practices start to become more visible in the job descriptions. And yes, as I said previously, it would be worth repeating the exercise in the future to document progress. So thank you very much for listening, and I'm looking forward to your questions and the discussion. We'll stop sharing now.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Christina. Now I posted in the chat about putting questions in the chat, but we've not had any. But I also said if people want to wait and ask verbally or use the chat later on, they can do. So we'll open that up now. So if anybody does want to use the chat to type a question, you're more than welcome to. If you'd rather verbally ask a question, if you can just use the raise hand symbol, which you should be able to find on the top bar. And then it tells us in number order who's raised their hand, so we can come to you individually. Rob, feel free to unmute.
Hello. Thank you. That was really interesting. I just wondered if you had any information or could talk a bit more to the increase in this wording being in the job descriptions and adverts, about what that impact that's had in actually attracting a diverse group of people into the organizations.
Yes, thank you very much. So yes, from the quick research that I did to repeat the exercises. So first, it was really nice to see that that institutions are having this as key points in their job descriptions. It means that, and also from discussions within with more senior members within RLUK through the interviews, it seems that this is part of the influence that also the library is having in institutions. And yes, this. So from the data that we have in the PD bank, it means that institutions increasingly take these issues into the account, and the fact that they have included this in the templates is really interesting. This often this kind of research that we did and the reporting of this data within the RLUK groups, as well, is fostering conversations that bring up some information around current practices, around workforce development and retention. And yes, this is certainly something that I can say that this is being discussed. It is a challenge to achieve the goals, but from what we hear from our members, EDI is one of their priorities across different areas: workforce development, collections, and so on. Realizing those goals in some cases, it is challenging due to budget cuts and other constraints. But yeah, hopefully, I think this is the fact that there are more templates with these references in there. I think that this is an increasing awareness of the need to have a diverse workforce and, of course, inclusive practices.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, it'd be good to, I guess, later down the line, maybe it's a bit early to see kind of what the impact this has had, but
yeah, I think it needs I'm a bit skeptical, because in the job descriptions you cannot see fully the variety of practice or the variety of challenges. It needs to be complemented with other research methods, doing more interviews or discussions with members, really to see how this change is happening. From the research that I have done and the discussions that we're having, everyone is really keen, but it's a very slow process due to current structures and things that need to be changed, limited funding. So all these affect, but this is I'm a little bit cautious about the data in the PD bank, because they are very structured. The templates are often provided in collaboration, of course, with the other departments within the home institutions. They have a specific purpose, but they need to be complemented by further insights to give a fuller picture of the progress or what is happening at the moment. Something that we are very interested, of course, in doing in different contexts.
well, thank you.
Sounds like some potential future research collaboration could be in the works there then.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there's a question that's come through in the chat. If you want to pick that up, Christina.
Yes, just reading that. So it says that institutions are taking steps to consider the needs of a more diverse candidate pool in recruitment. What sort of steps are institutions taking to change their recruitment practices? So yes, some of the examples that so just to say first that this is the kind of information that you better get through interviews or through discussions. So some of the examples that we got from the discussions, but also from the interviews, but also from discussions within our networks, is the fact that let me see what sort of to change the recruitment practices. Yes, it's about trying to make job descriptions that can attract more diverse professionals, and trying to make them as inclusive as possible. Just also looking to publish them not at the mainstream channels, but also trying to through different communities to reach those professionals that could be interested in some of the library roles. There's also during interviews, for example, so I was some of the some senior members, senior staff from our members also informed me that gave me some information about the way that the interview panels are being created, and the care that is being taken to have to create more, to have a balanced interview panel depending on the role, and to include different perspectives there, as well as if the needs of candidates, for example, if somebody needs to see some of the questions in advance, these are taken also into account. So these are some of the things that just come to mind at the moment. But yeah, I also wanted to mention that within especially our one of our networks, the EDI and the Associate Directors Network, there have been recently discussions around neurodiversity and how you can identifying a future workforce, as part of discussions around identifying future workforce needs, identifying staff development needs and organizational structures. And there's also the group is also running a mentoring, a reciprocal mentoring scheme as part of, and as part of that, there were questionnaires where interested colleagues could disclose any conditions which they may need to talk to their mentoring partner about, for example, for making any reasonable adjustments or finding the best way to work together more effectively. So yes, this is most of the data came up from our first part of the research that we did in 2022. But there are pockets of information that come from the discussions within our networks, our RLUK networks, and we're always very interested in seeing how things these practices are developed, and also how we can make them more visible, especially when there are pockets of best practice within the institutions.
I have a question as well, but I'll come to Shirley first because
Yes.
you've got your hand up politely, Shirley.
Thank you. It was a really interesting presentation, and useful to kind of get that overview and insight, certainly from the perspective of job descriptions. I think that the couple of things, just for a quick one, question, and then for a deeper one. One was when you did the review again, that you're kind of, experimental review for 2025. Yes. Did you find that more RLUK? Did you find that more RLUK? Sorry, somebody's coming in, so I'm just got a bit distracted. Right. Did you find that RLUK had more members had joined the bank? Because obviously, when you did it in 22. I'm not sure exactly how many were members, but I think it was, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what you said, but I'm wondering whether it has increased.
Yes, this has increased a lot, and especially through our monthly newsletters that we share with our RLUK members, we give there the information about how many new institutions joined, or encourage others to join. But I think at this point we have 21 different institutions that have joined. Let me go to the the date. I don't have the exact number of that of the first bunch of institutions that submitted their job descriptions, but I think it will be in the full report there. But it has certainly increased as we give monthly updates on how members join and how to join.
Okay, so related to that particular question, is the fact that there's I suppose a concern that we haven't increased the number of job descriptions where equality, diversity, inclusion has been mentioned or is a core part of the job description, even though the numbers of institutions have increased, which would suggest that there's a core group of institutions that are particularly supportive of this type of activity, as opposed to maybe some of the other ones, maybe they're using it for other reasons. And I suppose that fits as well with the issue around leadership.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, we had one institution, I think, in the first batch that where you thought it was a kind of potential leadership type position. And even in the States where they're putting in a lot, there were only 12 in the first, and it went up to 24 in the second tranche. So I think the concerns I'm raising here is that where these things are not being driven by leadership and where we're not seeing change, even at the lower levels where the EDI should be, there's a problem around to what extent are we actually going to see the impact that the person who asked that question raised. I don't know if you've got any comments upon that and if there's been any kind of discussion about that within RLUK.
Yes, that's a very good point, and something that surprised me to some extent, but not to another extent. Like still from in 3 years, there were just, even though that the total amount of job descriptions more than doubled, we had still the same, like seven job descriptions with the with references to EDI in the job title. And I didn't do an extensive research this time, but even that, repeating some of the keyword searches, even that kind of revealed a lot, and this is quite interesting. So RLUK, so we have started now, as we move towards the end of this strategy, we have started discussions on the new strategy, which will be launched early next year. And of course, EDI will be again a part of these discussions, and it's also worth saying that EDI became more explicitly part of the strategy in the last strategy that we had, the 2022 to 2025. So that was a new strand which encouraged us to do more things to explore this landscape across the different areas and activities of the library. So yes, the fact that it does, and I'm sure this will be a very important part of the discussions, especially as we go to our members meeting in November, and how do you track the impact, or how you can actually achieve the goals around EDI when you don't when there is there's so many limitations sometimes to have both diverse workforce, but also to do these activities across the library. So, for example, I remember from the interviews that some colleagues were saying that they are very keen to support, to create new positions and so on, but all they could do was to create like voluntary roles or studentships that focused only like for a short term on those issues. And there was they clearly had the concern about how we can achieve the impact through these only temporary roles, but on the other hand, we cannot do nothing. It's trying to start small. But I think the fact that there are now more networks within RLUK members, like grassroots activity there, that helps push a little bit more for these activities and change. I think we still have a long way to go. You are very, very correct, and everybody from from all the people that we engage with in our networks, we see that everybody's really keen to do activities. There are many challenges that We need to find our way to navigate funding challenges and other ones and structural challenges. But yes, yeah, you're very correct. Very correct. The progress is slow, but it's certainly a major part of the discussion at the moment within RLUK, and I think as part of the next strategy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shirley. I'll ask my question now before we run out of time. So I was wondering, in terms of some of the data analysis, did you notice any patterns in terms of which institutions were the ones that are including more of these references than others? So were you seeing patterns? And I was thinking back to, as well, kind of as a follow-on, you talked about some of the findings being related to things like value statements and being connected to sort of institutional statements that are included almost as a matter of course, potentially within every job advertised at that institution, versus terminology that's appearing within duties and the job description that's potentially a bit more individualized as opposed to sort of generic, if that makes sense. So I wondered if you'd done any sort of data analysis on that.
Yeah.
Duties versus statements, and whether there's any patterns across institutions.
Yes, so at the time of that first research, when I did the more detailed analysis, when there were actually fewer job descriptions. So the first thing that you can notice is that the kind of institutions that had already at the time the templates with the statements were the bigger institutions across the country, and the ones who submitted first, like Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, were also was one of the first, and others. So in terms of the direct references to EDI, there were not, I guess, too many job descriptions so that you can make some general conclusions. But I think from what I hear from what I heard from colleagues within during the interviews, it was often the institutions which had also an active networks within the library, staff networks that were leading these chains, as well as students that were very keen to very keen on these kind of initiatives. I couldn't at that time make more assumptions about the general type of institutions, but it was these cases where there were EDI networks within the library, or students were very active around these issues, that we could see things like that becoming more quickly visible.
Yeah, and potentially then having an impact on why it's being included beyond it being an institutional tick box.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we've just got a few more minutes. So if there's a last question, I think we'll have time for one more. It's fine if there's not. Okay, there's no hands going up, so I'm going to stop the recording.